Not many should become teachers. Well, that's just great. Anyways, not many should become teachers, my brothers, knowing that we will receive a stricter judgment. This is my favorite verse in the whole Bible. Just letting you know. Okay, I'm almost sarcastic on that. For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a mature man who is also able to control his whole body. Now, when we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we also guide the entire or the whole animal. And consider ships. Though they are very large and driven by fierce wind, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So too, though the tongue is a small part of the body, it boasts great things. Consider how large a forest a small fire ignites. And the tongue is a fire. The tongue, a world of unrighteousness, is placed among the parts of our bodies. It pollutes the whole body, sets the course of life on fire, and is set on fire by hell. By where? Hell. Isn't that interesting? Every sea creature, reptile, bird, or animal is tamed and has been tamed by man, but no man can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. We praise our Lord and Father with it, and we curse men who are made in God's likeness with it. Praising and cursing come out of the same mouth. My brothers, these things should not be this way. Does a spring pour out sweet and bitter water from the same opening? Can a fig tree produce olives, my brothers, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can saltwater spring yield fresh water. Let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, it is such a great opportunity we have to meet here today, to study your word, to reflect on it and meditate on it. And Lord, I ask that you help us not to be distracted. Help us not to daydream or wander. And Lord, with some of what we're about to read and reflect upon in your word, we might be resistant to it. We might hear it and say, I don't know. And so Lord, I ask that you help us to be receptive of your word. And with your Spirit, convict us. And convict us in a way that we cannot shake loose. That we could leave here changed. That we could leave here different. That we could leave our worship service today more honoring you and in more of your glory. That we could just praise you more. And that our words might honor you and reflect your intent more. Help us with that this morning. This I pray in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Here is the absolute reality about words. Sometimes you can cover what was said. Okay? Sometimes you can cover what was said, but you can never recover it. You can never recover it. Okay, there are times where you might say something and someone goes, "What did you say?" And you go, and you quickly flip it around. Okay, you can try to cover it up. You can try to do whatever you can, and sometimes you will be successful, sometimes not. Sometimes time is your best friend. You know, every now and then my wife and I will be talking about something and she'll say, "Are you just saying I need to lose weight?" And I go, she's like, "You're hesitating." And there's no covering at that point. Other than saying, "Hey, look at that, chocolate." She goes, "Ooh, chocolate," and everything's fine, okay? Chocolate covers a lot of sin in life. It really, really does. So chocolate is a good friend. Yes, indeedy doody. So is knowing what your spouse's favorite TV show is. "Oh, look what's on." Demand. And you're able to pull it up. "Oh, yeah, let's watch that." Okay, you're able to cover things up, but you can never recover it. Okay, words are like a dandelion. Okay, have you ever blown one of those? Ever done that as a kid and those things just go off out into the distance, right? They just kind of float off in the air. I had done this with the youth group once. I got them all out. I had them all pick up dandelion. I said, "Oh, blow them as hard as you can." And they all went. I said, "Okay, ready? Here's the game. Go catch them all back." And they went, "What?" And they're looking at me. What's funny was they actually went at first. They actually got a good step or two before they realized what was said. That's just how eager some yous are. Very impulsive sometimes. Not that adults are that way. We've matured since that, right? So they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Go, all the things you just blowed, go get them, put them back. We're going to get some little pieces of glue, and we're going to attach them back onto the..." And they're like, That's impossible. I went, oh, good. Glad you recognize that. So are words retrieval. You cannot retrieve words like that. It's not going to happen. You cannot recover it. And so what we have to do is really begin to appreciate the power of the word. Okay? The word has amazing significance to it. Sometimes the smallest word has the greatest impact. Think, if you will, of a scenario where you have a lady. Maybe her name is Kathy. If someone here names Kathy, it's not about you. Any similarities or resemblance of you is simply accidental and coincidental, whatever that wording goes at the end of movies, right? So let's say there's a lady named Kathy, and she's on a date for the first time with the guy she just met, and they're having a good time at dinner, and dinner gets all done, and he says, how would you like to come up to my place for the night? She could say any one of two words with great impact, yes or no. Or think, if you will, of a couple that is standing next to each other, and they happen to be surrounded by people that they love. And up in front of them is a pastor, and the pastor turns to the man and says, will you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? And then he says, okay, the small words, I do or I don't. Severe impact, right? Or think of another situation, a 20-year-old named Sean. And again, anybody here named Sean, that's not about you, hopefully. But let's say there's another guy, 20 years old, named Sean, and he's standing, also surrounded by his loved ones. But for him, he is standing in front of a judge and a jury. And the judge says, Foreman, do you have a verdict? And the lady stands up and says, yes, Honor, we have a verdict. What say you? We find the defendant. See? Now you're like, what's the answer? What's the story? Why is he there? Okay, one word, guilty, not guilty. Okay, two just small words, simple words, right? Very simple. But what impact do they have? What power, what potency do these words have? Extraordinary power. Extraordinary power. A word can make you cry. A word can make you laugh. You know, how many watch sitcoms? And we notice that sometimes the sitcom has somebody falling over and we laugh, and that's funny. But sometimes what's funny is what they say. And we laugh. Anybody like comedians? Right? Who have learned how to harness the power of words. Anybody ever been swept away by a politician's great statements and expertise of language and said, man, they speak well, man, they're coherent, man, they seem intelligent. Oh, and then you find out they didn't write their own speeches. Then you wonder how smart they really are. But you get swept away because of the power of words. Okay, so words are significant, absolute, tremendous power. And if you're reading James 3, 1 through 12, you might see what looks like a contradiction until you realize what James is talking about. He says you have to control your tongue, but no one can tame the tongue. And that seems weird. Why would you have to control something that can't be tamed? You can't do that. That seems like a contradiction. And what James is doing is he is saying that you cannot tame the power of the tongue. Therefore, you have to control what the tongue does. Okay, you have to control your speech because you cannot control the power of speech. You cannot control it. The tongue, the words that the tongue says is not able to be tamed. The most fiercest, wildest animal can eventually, through time, be tamed, but not the words you say. The power of the tongue, untamable. Untamable. Okay, you cannot deal with it like that. You have to, therefore, control it. You have to control what you're saying because you can't control the power of what you're saying. And who is it that has the most potential of abusing this power amongst anybody else? Who is the biggest type of profession that has the opportunity to have the most influence with their power of their speech? That answer goes to predominantly, teachers. Okay, that goes to teachers. This is why James says that teachers will be more strictly judged, because upon them is a job of vocation. Everything about them is geared toward the words and the responsibility of the power thereof. Okay, so the teachers are going to be more strictly judged. And like I said, this verse really is one of the most convicting verses for me of all of Scripture. It really is, because it's real easy when you teach on a regular basis. Not only do I teach here, but I teach at Grace Bible College and also at now Cornerstone University. And so teaching is all around my life. And it's real easy for me to get in the routine of teaching and the love and thrill of teaching and learning and sharing and getting that information out there that I can forget how powerful the words are, the impact those words can have on the lives of a person. And if I can easily forget that, and I'm surrounded by it, how much easier would it even be for other people to forget the power of their words? Okay, the words are extraordinary. We have to be extraordinarily careful with our words. And we see that teachers get judged more strictly. All over, this makes sense. You know, we get judged more strictly by other people. Okay, teachers get judged more strictly by other people. Take, if you will, an example that when a teacher fails or a student fails, who usually gets the biggest erg against them? People are usually more upset when the teacher fails than when a student fails. Think of this type of an example. You have a teacher and a student who enter into a relationship with each other. And the society and media and people get mad at which one of the two? The teacher, even if they're both adults. If it's in a college, okay, and the teacher's 30 and the student's 24, they're not even that far difference in age, and they end up in a relationship together, they still get mad at the teacher, okay? So teachers get judged more strictly. We hold them to a higher level, a higher standard, right or wrong. That's what happens, and really should, because the teachers are in that position of influence. They're in that position of authority. Okay, so it's an appropriate thing, but we do recognize it does happen. So when we see James 3:1, we shouldn't say, well, that's unfair. We do it all the time, appropriately so. Okay, we do it all the time. And teachers are judged more strictly, not only by others, but also by God himself. Okay, so if a teacher teaches poorly or teaches heresies or teaches irresponsibly or teaches information in such a way that leads people away from God rather than toward him and onto a path of destruction, God's like, hey, guess what? You're going to have a harsher judgment. Hey, guess what? I'm going to be more strict with you than I will be with anyone else. It's interesting that the level of judgment will be higher for that individual. And this applies to, well, teachers. But here's how this really begins to broaden the spectrum a little bit, because who are considered teachers in our society? We have pastors, we have school teachers, we have professors, we also have authors, writers and directors of movies, and bloggers and tweeters, and people posting on Facebook, and on it goes. You might be like, Facebook? Really? Well, if you're posting stuff on Facebook for other people to learn from you, you are trying to do what to them? Teach. You are elevating yourself to the position of teacher, right or wrong, qualified or not, doesn't matter. You're elevating yourself to that position. That's what the blogosphere has done. That's what Facebook has given that opportunity to. And it's ironic in a way, because you got this website, this social medium, that people are able to have a voice given to anyone and everyone about anything, and also opens up the opportunity for great destruction. Also opens up the opportunity for completely giving themselves a harsher judgment by God than what they would have had to begin with. Okay, so that's what Facebook has done, because people elevate themselves to the point of teacher on Facebook. Hey, everybody, we should be doing this instead of this, and we need to correct our view on this, and I'm going to post this, and I'm going to like it, and I'm going to share it, and I'm going to repost this, and I'm going to like that and share that, and I'm going to add a link to it, to this article, and I'm going to, you see, people are collecting a thesis on Facebook these days. That's what's going on. That's what's happening. That's what's happening on the Twitter sphere. That's where people are sitting there tweeting, hey, this needs to be the case, and this needs to be the case, and here's my comment about this thing in media, and on it goes. We are adding ourselves to the point of teacher, and therefore a more strict judgment. So, With that in mind, I would love to be able to just give a few insights for those who are already teachers and those who desire to be teachers, for those who desire to have blog spots, who desire to do vodcasting, video broadcasting, whatever, who desire to do tweets like that and Facebook note profiles and all that stuff. For those that want to get into that position, get into a position of teaching, I don't want to belabor this long because I want to continue on with James, but this is a good chance to just kind of say, I know a lot of us are in like even management positions. Managers are a type of teachers because they set the example for those that are underneath them. And so if you're in any type of a supervisor type position or management position or lead position, congratulations. You're a teacher at that job, then how to run and what needs to be done in what order and what needs to be fixed in what way. You've been given that type of authority. You're a type of teacher at that point. And I'm not just being loose and fancy-free with the word. It really does apply and within those types of categories and situations. So I would love to get some insights here so that we can try to do this as successful as possible so that we might, on our judgment day, though we will be judged more strictly, be able to at least have some success in this area. Okay, so just a couple of insights. And if you want where I'm getting these insights from, I actually took these all from Mark chapter 10, verses 42 to 47, 47, 45, 42 to 45. So that is just where I'm getting these insights from. Mark chapter 10, 42 to 45. Very great little passage. Jesus is teaching. I figured why not go to James's older brother? Seems like if we're going to talk about teachers, and James is talking about teachers, let's see what his older brother had to say on it. So it's the red letters within that passage. And here's the first one, and that is, do not seek to be important. My first advice, my first level of insight is do not seek to be important. Here's how this plays out, okay? In other words, start off by being under authority before getting into authority. Okay, start with being under authority before you get into authority. So many people, they want to be a manager now. They want to be the teacher now. They get to school only for the purpose of getting a degree so they can have the authority, not because they're there to actually learn and be under authority. So they come in challenging every teacher, challenging every professor, not willing to learn, but wanting to just say, I already know it all. Just give me my A, get me out of here, let me pass, give me my degree, get me out of here. And I don't want nothing to do with any of this time. It's taken too long as it is. And they just cannot wait to get into that position. And we need to just take a time to be under authority. Some people get into a job and they want to get to manager right away. They just got to get there. They want to get promoted, and they just can't wait to get there. And just slow it down and be under authority before you are in authority. Another way of looking at it would be patient. Be patient, okay? Don't seek to be important, but it means that you're going to be patient because you're not about being significant and therefore impatient about not being significant. Therefore, impatient about not being important. You just be patient. Don't be in a hurry to lead. Don't be in a hurry to manage. Don't be in a hurry to supervise. Don't be in a hurry to teach. Take your time. Learn, study, follow, be mentored, go to school, study harder. If you're a manager, grab books on management theory and leadership methods, and grab a book on business ethics. If you're a teacher, grab books on teaching styles and techniques, and just learn and grow and develop. Even if you're a manager at a Burger King, you can learn management theory. You can grab books at any store. You can buy The Leadership Challenge by Kuzny and Posner. Okay, that's it's like a leadership Bible almost. Okay, and I don't like it when they call it that because there's only one Bible. Yet that's how people describe it. It's called The Leadership Challenge, about yay big. And they even have what's called Christian Reflections on the Leadership Challenge that Kuzny and Posner worked on with John Maxwell and a few other Christian leaders. Great stuff. Amazing stuff. Read the book Good to Great. There's a lot of good books out there on leadership and management and business models that you can learn that can apply to any broad situation. Be a type of person who learns. Okay? A person who seeks to be important is not a person who has a teachable spirit. Because if they're being taught by someone, that person is more important than them. They tend not to have a teachable spirit. So that's my first element of advice for you. Second element would be to be a servant. Jesus uses the technical phrase, be a slave to all. Okay, be a servant. Be a servant to people. Share ways to succeed. Don't just tell others what to do. Yes, there's a big difference. One tries to be a dictator, where the other one is simply trying to really be a true father-type leader. Big difference between the two. Okay, so share ways to succeed. Don't simply just tell others what to do. Help others to be more successful than you and to succeed beyond you. That would be just awesome. Okay, so go that route. So that's advice to you number 2. Be a servant. Then advice number 3 is to identify yourselves with others. This is what Jesus did. Okay, that's advice number 3 on this. That you would identify yourself with others. You don't look down upon others. You see people as not just equal as you, but even better than you. Put them up there, okay? And serve them that way. Be with them that way. And there is a big difference, between sympathy and identification. There's a big difference there. Sympathy says, I feel bad for you. Identification says, I will struggle with you. That's what leaders and teachers need to do. They don't need to just feel bad for a student or feel bad for an employee or feel bad for someone just because they're in a bad situation. They need to say, I am suffering with you. I'm identifying with you. Okay, so those are my simple 3 as a little excursus, as a little footnote, a little side note on this whole thing about when James says in chapter 3, do not seek to be teachers, because if you do and you are a teacher, you're going to be more strictly judged. And my advice, if you want to be a teacher, if you are a teacher, is right there. There's 3 spots. They all come from Mark chapter 10, verses 42 to 45. Good stuff for you. Don't seek to be important. Be under authority before you're in it. Be a servant. View other people as greater than you and serve them. Help them to succeed. And then identify with others. Suffer with them. Struggle with them through what they're dealing with. Now, we're able to kind of look more back then at James chapter 3, because James goes on in verse 2 and he says, if anyone does not stumble with their words, they are a perfect person, because we all screw that up. Okay, I'm sure every single one of us have been there, that we said something and then we stop and we go, snap, I don't believe I just said that. Oh, this is going to be bad. Okay, and my wife knows this really, really well, because she plays on this on people. Someone will say something and they'll say something totally innocent, like, do you want something to eat? She'll go, are you calling me fat? And they'll be like, what, I did, what? And they're just, and that's her sense of humor. God bless her. Okay, it is so much fun. But she plays off of that issue that we stumble with our words. And we do. We stumble with them. Sometimes we're at a loss for words. Sometimes we say the wrong words. Sometimes we say the right words, but in the wrong tone. Okay, did you know that you could actually say some wonderful words, but your tone completely changes everything? For example, when I was in drama class, a theater class at Grand Valley, okay, where they gave us just a script, and they told us to do whatever we want with the script. We can have any actions, any behaviors, but you had to say those exact lines. You just couldn't change the lines. They gave us no character understanding. They gave us no male, female, no roles, no situation, no story, nothing. Just a list of a script, just words. That's all it was. So one of the lines this was the defining line that I decided was the defining line of the entire exercise. It was, would you like some coffee? Those were the words. Really simple words, right? Would you like some coffee? Now, this can change the entire story based completely upon your tone and right inflection and pausing within that sentence. For example, you can go up to someone and go, would you like some coffee? And be like, that's kind of creepy. It's kind of weird. You can go back. You can say, would you like some coffee? No. Okay? Or, would you like some coffee? Sure. Okay. Same words, different tone, different attitude. It can sound flirtatious. It can sound creepy. It can sound like a serial killer. It could sound like a line from Arsenic and Old Lace. It could sound like a number of things, okay? It's just words. And words have extreme power. So does our tone. So does our attitude. So does our reflection. So James says, you know what? We struggle with this. We struggle with our speech. We struggle. We can't tame the power of words, but we can deal with our tone and the words we use. We need to control that speech. And he said, and we're going to struggle with this. We're going to struggle with this. Because a perfect person, and the Greek word, the perfect person, the perfect means to be wholly, fully developed in a moral sense. So a lot of times people tend to retranslate it with the word mature. Okay, though I think mature is kind of a wimpy version of the word perfect. I think James says, hey, this is a person who has got it. They don't have Jesus' perfection, but they've got it figured out. They're not just old and mature, they are mature. Okay, so don't just think that, oh, I'm a mature Christian. No. If you think you got maturity, that just shows you don't. Okay, you're walking around in your little diapers calling them BVDs, and it don't work. Okay, so it's just, you are not mature. You're still got the issue. Okay, so James is saying that a person who has maturity will not be able to stand mixing their speech. A person who has maturity, that's what he goes on later and even into verse 10 of chapter 3 there. A person who has maturity cannot stand mixing their speech. They can't. That's why James says that you won't have salt water and good fresh water coming out of the same spring. It's not going to happen. You can't mix it. Okay, so a mature person will not be able to stand that. And the entire book of James has littered throughout it issues of maturity regarding speech. Because remember, the book of James is written by Jesus' younger brother, and it's wisdom literature, equal to like the book of Proverbs. It's not an epistle, it's not a gospel, it is wisdom literature, like Job, okay, like Song of Solomon, like Proverbs, like Ecclesiastes. It's wisdom literature. So he uses metaphors a lot and statements like a bit in a horse's mouth and the rudder on a ship and a spark with a fire and all these things. He uses that, talks that way because of the genre he's writing in. It's the only wisdom literature of the New Testament we got, and it's awesome that we got it. Okay, it's one of the reasons it's one of the most difficult books to read, not just for content, but because, ouch, my toes. Okay, it's really rough to deal with. So he says in James chapter 1:20 that the tongue is destructive evil, bending toward anger and complaining. 1:26 towards self-deception. 2:6 towards offense. 4:2 toward quarreling. 4:16 toward boasting and bragging. Verse 5:12 towards swearing and profanity. And on. James, that's just a tip of the iceberg of how James talks about the tongue within this book. We've covered several of them already as we've been going through verse by verse through our series. We're going to cover the rest of them later. You're like, swearing and profanity, that's in there? Yes, James 5:12. Write that down. Give it to your teenagers. They need to be convicted. Okay? That's what, it is there. So James talks a lot about that. And that the immature person will be all about gossip, and the mature person will say, no, I'm not into that. The immature person will say, I know they all have a problem with speech, and I don't like it, but I don't have a problem with my speech. I got it figured out. And the mature person says, man, I struggle. And I'm working on this step by step. Okay, the immature person, some will even say, I know I have a struggle with this. I know I have a problem, but you know what? I know God says I shouldn't, but he doesn't know my history. He doesn't know my parents. He doesn't understand my life, my situation. So therefore, I don't care. I'm not going to change. And that would be a person I would say, time to evaluate your relationship with God. Because that means you're going to the wedding altar to be married with God, so to speak, and you're saying, I will promise to be faithful to you as long as you're skinny and as long as you dress well and you got stiletto heels and you don't burn my dinner. The person who says, don't care, is the person who says that to God at their wedding day. And it's messed up. It's messed up. Because if we love God and we're placing him as the highest in our life, in the center of our life, and we find out that we're doing something that breaks his heart, that dishonors him, that does not bring him glory, and we find out that we're doing that, and we say, I don't care, that means you don't care about God. Okay, that's very serious business. This is why James says this is a destructive fire, and why hell is going to set this on fire, because if you don't deal with this, that is your future. Okay, that is what you are dealing with. James is not saying that people with good speech are saved. He is saying saved people are going to develop good speech. Because God's going to make you a new tree right down to the roots. That means growing good fruit. And if you have fruit that says, I don't care, I want nothing to do with that, then you're not a new tree. You don't got new roots. You might say, well, I said the prayer and I know Jesus died on the cross. Well, great. Guess what? Satan knows Jesus died on the cross. He completely believes that. That's what we covered just last week. Demons understand everything that you agree with because believing into salvation is not about agreeing with a set of facts. It is about a changed behavior because I'm committing my life to these set of facts. It is not just knowledge that I'm grabbing a hold of, it's knowledge that turns around and also grabs a hold of me. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. And speech is one of the evidences that that has happened in your life. It is one of those fruit that needs to grow. And I know you might say, well, the spiritual fruit, there's nothing under that says speech. It's all kindness and love. James is saying that's not an exhaustive list. That is a list. Speech indicates what is on the inside, because what comes out of the mouth, this is something even his big brother said back in the Gospels, what comes out of the mouth is an indication, reflection of what's in the heart. Okay, for as your heart is, so comes the treasure that comes out of it. Yes, your words are a treasure. Just is it the treasure people are wanting? Is it a benefiting treasure? Okay, because where your treasure is, there your heart is, and you're going to speak it out. It's going to be there. Okay, so how are your words? So that brings us then to a great adage that I would love to be able to try to just bring this all together with for you. Because like I said, we went through verses 1 through 12. We saw that. We saw all that's there. But I really want us to, I don't want us to leave just saying, hey, I got it. I want us to leave with, oh my gosh, I think I got it, and I'm scared. I need to change. I want us to really feel this, sense this, sink our teeth into this. So there's an adage that says that if you have to look before you leap, right? You familiar with that? Well, we've paraphrased it many, many decades ago to think before you speak. Okay? You've probably heard that being said a dozen times. And here's how this works. If we think before we speak, okay, this is a lot like the bit in a horse's mouth, a lot like the rudder on a ship. Okay, if we think before we speak so that we can control what we're saying, because we have to think before we speak, and we always do. The problem is we tend to only let a couple seconds move between our thoughts and our speech. We think it and we say it and we don't filter it. We don't adjust it. We don't pray on it. We don't ask if it's appropriate. We just boom, boom, like a habit. Okay, and we have to sometimes stop and think before we speak. And if we think before we speak, we will say the right word. At least we'll have potential of saying the right word. Okay, we will say the right word. That would be like a word of encouragement to the depressed, a word of warning to the proud. But if we don't have that clean heart, if we don't have that inward change, we will end up saying the wrong words. Or we'll end up saying the right words with the wrong tone. And here's how this tends to begin. Usually that evidence of that heart, it becomes evident, that the uncleanliness there becomes evident with the beginning of phrases, something like, it's just an example, I wish I had, or I wish I were. And then you fill in the blank. That's where it starts. I wish I were more intelligent, more beautiful, more whatever. I wish I was more athletic, or I wish I had a spouse like theirs, or I wish I were married, or I wish I had their job, or I wish I had their kids. Whatever the case may be, it starts there, okay? Because suddenly at that point, they're thinking that their life cannot be meaningful, cannot be significant without those things, which means they're holding those things higher than God, and their faith in God is simply a means to an end, not the end in itself. Okay, so they start with those phrases. And once you got those phrases floating around in your mind, I wish I were, I wish I had, whatever it is, then comes words of resentment toward others. Well, that's easy for you to say because you got. That's easy for you to say because you can. You didn't have you don't have my struggles. You got that. You got everything I wish I had. So of course it's easy for you to say. And therefore they begin rejecting and neglecting counsel. They begin completely tuning all that counsel out. People could even tune out pastors. Well, it's easy for you to say, you went and you got, look at your kids. Your kids are like that, and my kids aren't. So it's easy for you to say whatever. And then they reject the counsel. They completely ignore it. From that then develops an attitude of bitterness that produces words of hatred. Okay? From that comes an attitude of bitterness that produces words of hatred. No, I will not forgive. I will not let it go. I'm going to be an emotional archaeologist, and I'm going to dig things up over and over again, and I'm going to be completely reliving the pain of yesteryear like it was today. Because here's the reality of things. Hurt people tend to hurt people. That is just the reality of it. Hurt people tend to hurt people. And then they want to talk bad about someone else. Then they want to say negative stories about them. And then they want to refuse to forgive. thus sinning and dishonoring Christ over and over again. It's what tends to happen. They get verbally swung against, so they want to verbally swing back. Hurt people tend to hurt people. Also, what tends to happen within this time, within the right words, is that you sometimes will find that the people will end up sharing and perpetuating lies. They will just keep it going and keep it going. Usually it starts with phrases like, I just heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but I just found out that, or I was just told that. And they start with those phrases, a.k.a. gossip, a.k.a. sin, a.k.a. breaking the heart of God. Okay, that's if we stop and we think, we have the great potential of saying the right words. The right words. Okay, the words of encouragement, the words of blessing, the words of forgiveness and redemption. We can say the right words. We can also say them at the right time. This one's probably even harder for us, depending on some of your household dynamics. But we will say the right words at the right time. Okay? In other words, we'll be able to say it when it will all be heard and that distractions are at a minimum, and when it will help rather than hinder. But if we don't have a clean heart, we will not wait for the right timing, because we won't view them as more important than us. Instead, we'll view us as more important than them. What we have to say is more important, whatever they're dealing with. So therefore, I'm going to interrupt whatever they got going on. So let's just say that it's Super Bowl Sunday, and it's in the fourth quarter, and the game is tied. It's the Lions versus the Redskins, okay? I know, I'm swinging for the fence. But nonetheless, okay? The Lions got the ball. Like I said, the game's tied. There's like a minute left to go. They're running toward the end zone. There might be another touchdown. The wife comes in, turns off the TV, and says, we need to talk. I'm upset with you. And the husband says, good. I'm feeling something very similar. Okay, that's, or if you got, like, my mom's a reader. Okay, my mom's a reader, and if she's getting toward the end of the book, I know one of two things is taking place. Either she's really into it and is just about to finish it, or she just started it. Because she reads the end first to know whether the book is worth reading. That's what she does. I know one or the other is taking place. However, if I go up to her and I go, hey, Ma, she's like, Ma, because, obviously hearing's the issue. Mom, yeah, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to wake up and it's going to be Saturday next week, okay? You wait for the right time, all right? It's not, and here's just a rule of thumb for you. Not everything has to be said right now. That's just the reality of it. Not everything has to be said right now. Too many people are all about interrupting, and it goes two ways on this. Some people are all about interrupting because it's got to be said right now, and some people are all about, oh, hang on a second, let me get this. You don't have to hear that right now. Put your phone on vibrate and let's talk together. For crying out loud. It can wait. It waited 10 years ago. It can wait today, okay? How much has changed, okay? And so it doesn't have to all be said right now. If somebody verbally swings against you, do you need to reply right now? No. You want to, but don't. Step back. And if you say, well, I'm going to swing back, it's their fault. Well, congratulations, Adam, you just blame shifted. You're still guilty. Okay, just because they say something about you does not mean that it is no longer sin to say something bad back. It is still sin. And the who started it approach makes no difference when both parties are guilty. It does not matter because you are still guilty. You still verbally swung it out. Okay, so you're still dishonoring Christ. You're still sinning against him, regardless. So if we can just think before we speak, we have the potential of saying the right word at the right time and for the right reason. Okay, and for the right reason. To build up instead of tear down. To give hope instead of despair. Here's the thing. We need to remember, James said in what? In James 3, chapter 2, that we all struggle. You might have to get your Bibles back open, and we're not done studying the Bible yet. We're still here in James chapter 3. These are reflections upon the text, okay? So James 3:2 says that we all stumble, struggle, okay? Who stumbles and struggles? All. Who? Some of you aren't getting it. Who? All. All right. Some of you are like, I don't know. We've said it a dozen times, okay? We all struggle. Every single one of us struggle. Now, you might think that where I'm going with this, but you're about to be surprised. We all struggle. Therefore, when you talk about somebody, you need to talk about their best day, not their worst day. Many times you are someone else's first impression to someone else. Because if you talk to your friend about somebody who's not present and they haven't met yet, you are now presenting their first impression for them. Is it going to be positive or negative? You might want to start with, man, you won't believe what so-and-so did. This was ridiculous. It was horrible. I need to share with you. This is just so bad. Well, guess what? Now you're talking about someone. Welcome to the world of gossip. And second, you're providing a negative first impression upon which all future data is now going to be filtered through. And you're trying to say that you're surprised at their stumble? I'll bet their stumble is probably not even a fraction of how the cross has already criticized you. Because we have, who stumbled? How many of us? All of us have stumbled. So sharing what someone else has done is not necessarily a shock thing. Because you're guilty too. So we have to ask ourselves, what stories are we sharing? And why? For what reason? I understand sometimes things need to be shared in a very particular extreme type of situation, especially if you know somebody is a sex offender and they're trying to apply for a position of working with children within the church, and if you've confronted that person first, hey, I really don't think you should be going for that position. First, we as a church, like if it was here at this church, it's really easy. If you have a sex offender list, you don't work with our kids. Just plain and simple. You're automatically off the board. We still believe God can use you and has called you to work for his kingdom. Come, accept Christ if you haven't, and come work and serve, just not with our kids. We'll put you someplace else. A lot of places for you to serve, just not with our kids. Okay? And to go to if it's easy here, we just say you just can't. But if you're at a church that doesn't, go to the person and say, I don't think this would be wise. I think this is a problem. They say, I want to work with the kids. Okay, and you're not going to repent from this? Well, now I'm going to go. I'm going to talk to some elders. I'm going to go talk to the pastor and a deacon or two, and we're going to come back, and we're going to, okay, that's what, it should not be going to your friend saying you won't believe what's about to go down in that church. Okay, but you need to go to the pastor, and then you might say, hey, there's a situation, and then that's where you might share the negative story because of the urgency of the matter. But if it's not one of those types of extreme situations, do not start your conversation with someone about someone else as their first impression with a negative story. Start with their best day. Start with how great they are. Let them filter the new data. You might say, but this person's a jerk. Yeah, to you. Well, this person's a real annoyance. Yeah, to you. Let them become best friends. Let them annoy each other over there. Then they aren't annoying you anymore, are they? Tell the good story. Make a good friendship. Okay? Nothing else. Okay? Start with the good words. Are you presenting people in a positive light or a negative light? Okay, if we just think before we speak, we can say the right words at the right time and for the right reason. Words, the power they have. I love you. It's going to be okay. I'm here for you. I don't want you around. I don't like you. I don't care. I have my own problems to deal with. What words are you sharing with people? What words are you offering out there? Think, if you will, for a moment of just how God when he looks upon humanity, he looks upon the world, and he sees all the sin and all the corruption and all the filth. And what word did God give? He gave Jesus. The Word became flesh. Then what word did Jesus give? Father, forgive them. So what words are you going to give? God gave us the Word, which gave us forgiveness. What words are you giving? Is it words of resentment, or is it words of redemption? Words of separation, or is it words of regeneration? Is it words that is fatigued by the past, or forgiveness in the present? But you don't know what people did to me. You don't know what they said about me. You don't know the hurt that's there. And I know that God says forgive. Yes, there's consequences, and there's forgiveness. Forgiveness simply means lower your angering toward and trying to work out a restoration of a relationship. It may not be perfect. It may not be like anything you wish it to be, but it can be more restored than it currently is. That's forgiveness. This is what God gave to us. Those are His words. What words are we giving? Another way of asking it would be this. If Jesus spoke with your words and with your mouth, would He still be able to die on the cross? Or would He no longer be sinless? If He were to talk to your spouse, to your boss, to your children, the way that you have in the past week, would Jesus be still without blemish? I think we all have a struggle here. I know I struggle. I know you all struggle. We're all in the same boat together. Let's work together to try to control what comes out, to just think before we speak, to think it through. You can control that. You actually have been given by God the ability to control it all. You actually have. And I know you tend to think that you don't have the ability. The thoughts just pop and the words just say, and we tend to be shocked and we say the dumbest statements like, I can't believe I just said that. Well, you thought it first. Why are you surprised? You know, you can control that. And so I'm going to do an old exercise because I think it's worth it. Predominantly speaking, the color of this Bible is what? We can go with that. I was thinking gray right here. It's kind of, maybe it depends on the light, but if you want to go with black, that's fine. Whatever's going to be easiest for you. You said that the most, go for it. Here, I'll use the spine. It really is, okay? So the color here is what color? Black. Thank you. The color of this piece of paper is what? Black. Good job. I'm glad you're doing so well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold one up. I want you to say what color it is. I'm going to hold the other one up. You say what color it is. All right? Real simple exercise. A whole lot of fun. We'll all feel like we're in kindergarten today, and it's quite all right. So the color is? Black. Black. White. Good job. You guys rock. Black. White. White. Black. Awesome. This is great. You guys have black and white thinking, but that's okay. We'll deal with that in another sermon another day. Now, I'm going to hold one up. I want you to say the opposite color. The other one, okay? So I hold this one, I want you to say this color. If I hold this one, I want you to say this color, okay? You got it? Okay, I think you can do it. Black. You guys are a trip. You realize if someone's online and they're watching this, because all this is online, and they just like start here. They hear that. They'll be like, what type of cult is that? Okay, let's keep going here. This is so much fun. So you guys are doing awesome. Okay, now, you controlled your thoughts completely. You controlled your speech completely, to the point of even saying and identifying something that wasn't even there. You said something different than what you were shown. You controlled it. Congratulations. You have the ability. You have the knowledge. You have the skills. Now go use it appropriately. Use them appropriately. You've got them developed and they're sharp. They're well-tuned. Use them in your marriages. Use them in your relationships. Use them with your coworkers. Use them with your kids. Use that skill, those abilities with everyone you come across. Honor God with that ability. That ability. Let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father,